Good morning. No, see, I say good morning and you say good morning. Let's do that again. Good morning. Oh, that still wasn't that great. Good morning. How y'all doing today? I'm glad you all came out here, enjoying the breakfast, enjoying social media breakfast. We are social media breakfast. My name is Jeffrey Powers, and we're going to get this all kicked off here as we go. First of all, isn't this great food or what? Awesome, awesome. And of course, one thing I want to say here is I just got informed that they're going to actually be shutting down this wing of the Memorial Union and doing a lot of remodeling. So take a look around, because a lot of history. I've actually played up on this stage 3 or 4 times in my lifetime, and it's all going to get remodeled. So look around, take a look at it, and look at all the great architecture because it's going to change a little bit as we go in the future here. Let's talk a little bit about Social Media Breakfast, because that's why we're here, of course. Our focus is to learn about social media through presentations, panel discussions, and of course, case studies. We bring together everybody that wants to come here at 7 o'clock in the morning. So thank you very much for getting up and checking everything out here. We meet, actually you guys should know this. When do we meet? I'm sorry, what was that? All right, third Wednesday morning of each month, so put it on your calendar. Next month will be the third Wednesday of the month after that, and after that. So there's no reason to not have it on your calendar. It's very important. We do it in various locations, such as the Great Hall here. If you've got a place that you know of that can support 200 to 300 people for a social media breakfast, please let us know. Anybody in one of these, the black shirts with the social media breakfast logo on it, I didn't bring mine today for some reason, but feel free to talk to them and say, hey, I know of a place. Also, if you'd like to sponsor, we've got a lot of great sponsors which we're going to talk about in a couple minutes here, and if you'd like to get on that sponsor list, let us know, and we'll sit down and talk with you on all that. If you'd like to volunteer, we're always looking for people to help with things like tweeting out, AV, anything like that. If you've got an hour of your time a month and you can come out here and help us out, please let us know as well. And of course, speak to all of our board members. Just speak to them, just say hi. Just go up and say hi and shake their hand, because that's important. Speaking of our board members, we've got, of course, we've got our board members. This is our president, Lance. He's not here just yet. He will be here shortly. Of course, Tyler is our vice president. He's sitting right there. We got our secretary is Shane, which is over there, and our treasurer, which is Emily, and I don't think she's here, but she puts all the money together, which is great, because I don't know how to do that. And then, of course, the other board members, we got Rowan, Bill, myself, Andrew, Mike, and Renee, and oh yeah, I forgot about Tony. Sorry. And Tony, who is our media past president. So let's give him a round of applause. The whole idea of social media is to follow and engage. Follow and engage. So we've got all our links up there. Please subscribe to the Facebook. Please subscribe to the Twitter. We just passed 3,000 followers on our Twitter handle, and we thank you guys for following us over at SMB Mad. The LinkedIn SMB Mad for LinkedIn, that's the tiny URL right there, youtube.com/SMB Madison, where these presentations will be at your fingertips within the next few days, so you can see what you might have missed the first time around. All right, this is kind of cut off, but it says win a free copy, win a free copy of the content code. Is that, go ahead. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Shane.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Oh, I was hoping to get a little better applause than that. All right. Really, our guest speaker today, Don Stanley, he's got a few copies of the content code, which he helped put together. All you need to do if you're interested in winning a free copy today, go to our Facebook page. There's a post there. Share your questions on content. At the end of our event today, we're going to actually pick 5 questions for Don Stanley to answer. If your question is one of those that's answered, you're going to get a free copy of the book. So very easy to do. So as the presentation is going on, make sure to, ask those questions, post those questions there. Of course, he'll also answer some questions at the end if you don't get a chance to post, but it's a place to put them. And then after, he may even go through and kind of carry the conversation there as well. So keep that in mind and enter yourself to win a free book.
Sweet. Thank you very much, Shane. Is this next one you, or? Okay, well, I guess we go back to Shane. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the field with Shane.
Thanks, Jeffrey. I appreciate that. Coming from you live from the stage of the Great Hall. So here's another great thing that we're doing. Growth Bomb is a really awesome business podcast that's put on by these four wonderful people: Jenna Atkinson, Spencer Smith, who's in the audience today, Kayla Storlid, and Zach Nye. Social Media Breakfast is actually going to go and record a podcast with them today. So if you have other social media questions, we're going to be hashing on social media why businesses should be on social media. So make sure that if you have questions to tag Growth Bomb related to those, and we're going to try and answer some of those today and kind of talk that. I think the podcast, even though it's being recorded today, will be out, I think in about a week and a half or two. So keep an eye out for that when that comes out too. I think I got one more.
All right, upcoming, we've got some great presenters coming up here in the months, which is, when is the next one going to happen? Third Wednesday of the month? Okay, so July 15th, it was right there. I mean, Alder Maurice Cheeks, he's a good friend of mine. I've known him for many years. Back when he worked at Apple, he got into becoming an alder. He's really happy about it. He's got some great stuff to say. So we've got that in July, so don't miss that. Put that on your calendar. And then, of course, okay, well, we'll get back to that one really quick, Shane. Hold on. And then, of course, August 19th, we've got Nate Moll, who's a social media specialist. Yeah, you can clap if you want to. And he's going to talk about a thumbs up of UW-Madison. And then in September 16th, we have Spencer Smith, where is he? Is he right there? There he is. So go say hi to him, and now there's no reason why you're not going to be coming to the September 16th one, because he's here. He's going to keep track of everybody that's here and go from there. So, hey, do you want to be a future speaker? Last month they had an awesome speaker, and he did a great job with Social Media Breakfast. So anyway, if you want to be one of those people that actually speak, you got a topic that you need to talk about, let us know. Tweet us your ideas. SMB Mad is our Twitter handle, of course, and we'll go from there. And of course, the hashtag is... This is all about crowd participation at this point. So, and the hashtag is... There you go. I know it's early, but I don't get up this early, and I'm nice and bright and early, and 3 cups of coffee in already. So SMB Mad is the hashtag. Thank you very much. So, and of course, today's event is brought to you by our awesome sponsors. I was going through all the Social Media Breakfast, but by the way, we've been doing this for over 5 years, and we haven't really talked about that. So our first one was we figured February of 2009, then we took a really long break, and then the next one was in November of 2009. So technically it's about 6 years, but 5-6 years, we'll go from there. So, but these sponsors, some of these sponsors have been around since almost the beginning, and that's what's really cool about that. So let's give a hand to these sponsors, and anybody wants, from the top here wants to come up and talk? Oh yeah, okay. Oh yeah, I suppose I should just look at it. Lacey, where are you? Raise your hand. Everybody look at Lacey, say hi, Lacey. Lacey's the one that's taking your photos, the photos today for Social Media Breakfast. She's with Woodville Dream, which is right here. So let's give her a round of applause. And remember one thing, the camera is your friend. So just, when she points it at you, smile. It's a smile. So I also got a tweet from Kristen saying, come on, Geekazine, I haven't had enough coffee yet for audience participation. So Kristen, you need some more coffee. Somebody get her some more coffee. That'd be great. All right, let's move on from here, because you don't want to hear me speak all day, because I did that last month. So let's just finish this up. Help make SMB Mad better. Go over to the survey. Please fill that out, even if go over there and let us know, because that's what helps us condition and create better content for you guys. So you come out and just completely blown away by the speaker, because we've given you some great content, right? So yeah. We want to give you more great content, but we can't get inside your head to find out what that is. So let us know what you think of these breakfasts, and we'll go from there. And speaking of which, now I'm just going to hand this mic over to this man right here. He's with Free Rhino Media from the Madison area. He helped with the book that you see right here, the content code. And then, of course, if you go on Facebook and you ask your questions. By the way, using SMB Mad hashtag on Facebook is also a good idea, but ask your questions, 5 questions, you'll get a book from here. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Mr. Don Stanley.
Hey, thank you very much. Let me just quick pull up my presentation. And let's give a hand again to the folks of Social Media Breakfast for putting something like this together, where we get to have a room full of people who understand what it is that we're doing and working with. Great chance to collaborate, so a hand for the folks from Social Media Breakfast. Sorry, I like audience participation. So, let's start out with this, because you're not really here for me, you're here for you, right? Some of you will say, yeah, I came to hear you speak, but the reality is, you're just like with social, you're not here for me, you're for yourself. So I want you to imagine this. Imagine it is December 15th, you're working for a business, and your boss comes to you and says, I got a deal for you. Boss comes and says, here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to give you a $3 million budget. The $3 million budget is going to be used for digital and content marketing. By the way, this is a true story. Only the names and places have been changed to protect the innocent. Okay? And what I want you to do is I want you to come up with a digital marketing plan for us, and I want you to get us out there. So, Shane, you're the lucky winner of this $3 million. What do you do? He's speechless. Hire me. Hire me is what you need to do. Well, what about you? What do you do? This is we need more coffee at these tables as well. Who has an answer that they want to share? Publish all my children's books simultaneously. Jill, what would you do?
Depends on the organization that I'm working with and their priorities and goals.
It depends on the priorities and organizations and goals. But market research, anything else?
Hit the colleges. Kids are creative.
Hit the college.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Well, what this organization did is they hired an ad agency to create epic content. All right? Because we all hear that content is king, create epic content. And so at the 6-month mark, June 30th, boss comes in and says, how are things going? And you say, well, this takes work. Doing digital marketing, social media, it takes work. And we haven't seen an increase in traffic yet. We haven't really seen an increase in sharing of our content on social, digital, and we haven't seen any increase in sales. $3 million, okay? So your boss says, all right, I want you to fire the first team. I'm gonna give you 6 more months. You've got $1.5 million to spend in the next 6 months. Go for it. Create more epic content. Continue to spit out epic content. And we want to get on the map because we've heard everywhere that creating epic content is what this is all about, right? Right? Nodding's the universal sign of acknowledgement. Yep. All right. And so December 15th comes, nearing the end of the year. Boss says, all right, I'm ready. I'm excited. CMO Shane, you set this thing up. You didn't hire this guy Don, so you made a mistake, but we'll forgive you. And what are the results? Results are $3 million budget, $3 million worth of content, no increase in traffic, no increase of shares, no increase of sales. And you know what happens? He gets mad and you get fired. All right? And this is a case that's starting to happen more and more and more. Now, I love digital marketing, social media marketing, content marketing. I do work with the Content Marketing Institute. I've done classes for them. I write stuff for them. I love content. But the reality is we have to figure out what's happening. Has anybody had this happen with them where you're creating content and you're not seeing a lot of traffic? Show of hands. Okay, just a few of you. The rest of you are lying. But that's all right. That's all right. I still love you. Why is this becoming more common? The reason it's becoming more common is this idea of content shock. Has anybody heard the term content shock? Okay, so content shock basically says that content's being created at such a fast pace and there's so much available that there's a limited capacity for us to consume because you know what? Believe it or not, we all need sleep. I don't know about you, but it's kind of, one of those human biological things where you actually need sleep. And so what happens is as more content gets out there, there's more noise. And for us to be able to stand out, and this is where social media, you're going to find it's a great solution and a great help for this, is we have to figure out how do we stand out. When, like in my space, I'm a partner with HubSpot. Has anybody heard of HubSpot before? How am I going to compete with HubSpot? No way, I can't. So I have to figure out some different strategies. Now, just a little bit of quick background on me. This is me. Anybody ever see the movie Up? Squirrel! Now, part of what I'm lucky enough to do with teaching at the university and also running my own business is that I like to explore a lot of things. So I might not be super deep in terms of knowledge. I mean, that's what I love about like last month with the podcast and Andrew Foxwell when he talked about Facebook ads is you get to go deep. I like to look at the whole field. And I also study neuroscience and psychology to figure out, well, why do we use these tools? What do we use them for? What makes us engage and interact with them? And so one of the things that I like to do is I like to do lots of different things. And here's a small sampling of some of my clients. You may have heard of some of them. I'm not sure if you've heard of a few of them. But I'm lucky enough to work with some pretty cool organizations, get a chance to do some pretty cool work. It's a lot of fun. I also work with a lot of small nonprofits and small businesses. But these ones most people recognize, so they're like, wow, that's impressive. And you're supposed to impress people so that they pay attention. That's credibility and social proof, by the way, which is important in social media. All right? And so one of the gigs that I have right now is how many people here are familiar with Mark Schaefer? Oh my goodness, wow. Okay, got to check out Mark Schaefer. Businessesgrow.com is one of the top 10 blogs in the world, business blogs in the world, consistently listed as one of the top social media and digital marketing influencers by Forbes, and he writes for Forbes and Harvard, he's writing for Harvard Business Review, excuse me, a bunch of other places like that, goes around the world speaking, does lots of cool stuff. And anyway, he wrote this book, The Content Code, which created a lot of, or initially called it The Content Shock, created a lot of feedback. There was about 800 plus blog posts, and not including videos, podcasts, etc., written about this idea that we're getting saturated with content. And the feedback from a lot of people was, this is BS. This is BS, this stuff isn't happening. We're all, able to consume content, and there's not a problem with our content being found. And Mark is very detached with his research, which is one of the reasons that I really love working with him. I get really emotional and attached to things, and he's able to look at stuff logically and saying, okay, if you step back, take yourself out of being a content marketer and a social media person and think about what it's like in terms of what you consume. Is there anybody in this room who has too little content in their life? Anyone? Anyone who feels like they have too much free time on their hands? No? Darn, I so want to trade lives with somebody at some point. And so the idea is that when you look at these things, what is it that we as marketers can start to do to fight this idea of content shock? So part of my job right now, working in a consulting role with Mark, is to figure out and look at, I'm getting to look at, I feel like a mad scientist looking at all these super cool tools to figure out how do we get people to pay not just attention to content, but how do we build audience and how do we build traction so that our content moves? So the one thing that I want to qualify too, does anybody know what this is? Anyone? Okay. This is what I sell, and this is what any good marketer should sell, is crock pots versus microwaves. Building good plans, and this is why the company that I'd mentioned before was given 12 months, is it takes time to build quality relationships. There is no easy button. I don't care if anybody is selling an easy button in here, you're wrong. Because you can have, and I jokingly say, you can have your one-night stands, but you very rarely will marry somebody like that, because good relationships take time to build connections, and it's the same in business. And the cool thing with the psychology and neuroscience of studying this stuff is the pathways in our brain that develop when we form good, close friendships can form with businesses and organizations, and they can happen when we start to use digital effectively and well. And so Jay Baer actually echoes this as well. So for those of you who can't see, I know you're not supposed to read from slides, but I'll just say, content success is as much about amplification as it is about creating, and it's not easy. So one of the things that we used to have was this idea of, okay, how do we stand out? And just really quick history lesson, we had these 3 quick phases. First one was building websites. Everybody remember 1995, 1996? Oh, the glory days. That was only 20 years ago. And as you get older, 20 years is a smaller amount of time, by the way. All my students are like, 20 years ago? That's like black and white TVs, wasn't it? And I'm like, shut up. I don't want to talk about that. Let's change the subject. But it was, okay, if you wanted to stand out, what did you do? You built a website. Then a couple of years later, it became, well, there's so many websites, we've got this little tool now called Google. We need to be found in search, because what people are doing is they're going to the source of all light, truth, and knowledge, Google, and they're doing a quick search. And whoever shows up first wins, right? How many people consistently go past the first, how many people consistently use Google? How many people consistently go past the first or second page of search results? Okay, there's a therapist in the back that will talk to you afterwards. Kidding, of course. But the idea is we don't, because we expect Google to provide these search results. Well, now as this marketplace is getting more crowded, the competition for those top 10 spots is getting tougher and tougher and tougher, right? Trying to game the system, trying to use just SEO, doesn't work anymore. So now we've got social and mobile. All right, now I'm gonna stand out. Now if I can plant my flag, get here before my competition does, I'm good, right? What's the problem now? Everybody's on social and mobile, and social and mobile is becoming increasingly fragmented. How many people 3 years ago were on Snapchat? One? Snapchat didn't even exist then. How many people were on Meerkat 2 years ago? Periscope. We weren't, right? Because it didn't exist. Think of what's happened in the 11 years. Facebook is 11 years old, and think of what's happened in terms of how we market and how we consume content. It's crazy. And so we try to game this and figure this out, and now what we've got is we've got this explosion of content that there's so much out there that people are like, squirrel, and look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this, when they're looking at their news feed or their Instagram, whatever it is. And so again, the idea is we have to think strategically about how we stand out. One thing to pay attention to, whether or we like this is true. By the year 2020, it is estimated that data will increase 500%. Data online will increase 500%. That means we will have 5 internets, the equivalent of 5 more internets of what we have today. Think about that from a marketing perspective. Is that exciting news? It's like, oh man, are you kidding me? How am I going to stand out? And what's even more interesting to me is 75% of that content is going to be created by you guys. Right? And why do we go on social? Does anybody go on and say, hey, I want more branding? You know, I've got 3 younger kids, and I've never once had them say, Dad, can you read some advertising to me before I go to bed? That would be so cool. You know, no, what they want to hear is, why do we go on social? For the most part, a lot of times we go on to connect, to find information, or to connect with friends. So it's going to be harder for businesses and organizations to stand out when you're thinking of a stream of content coming from who? Your friends and family, right? So we need to be cognizant of this. And you can see this with Facebook reach. I wish Andrew was here. But Facebook reach, 2011 organic Facebook reach, 26% of your content would get through. What is it today? 2015, anybody know? Organic reach on Facebook? It's bad. That's the official number, bad. So this number is decreasing, and so again, we have to think about things. The average person at any one moment when they go onto Facebook, Facebook has the option of showing them 1,500 pieces of content. That's why Facebook filters. And if you look at a person's Facebook feed, you'll see a psychological profile of who they are, what they curate. It's very, very interesting. My kids hate that I know this stuff because they're like, Dad, quit looking at my stuff. But the idea, again, 1,500 pieces of content, massive content. So how do we stand out amongst all this noise? And that's really one of the big questions that we have to consider. And what's interesting is when Mark wrote the original Content Shock blog post last year in January 2014, tons of organizations, big organizations that I work with, like, no, he's wrong, doesn't know what he's talking about. Now, if you look in the last month and a half, 2 months since this book came out and since he gave his keynote at South by Southwest, you're seeing lots of email newsletters saying, here's how to amplify your content. There's actually job descriptions for content ignition and amplification specialists. So it's kind of that, kicking and screaming at first, but then saying, oh, maybe there's some truth to this. And so we need to think about, well, what do we do to stand out? Because a big part of our job, how many people in here are responsible for doing some type of content curation or content creation for their business, for their clients? All right? So it used to be that was the finish line. Now we have to start thinking about doing great content is like the bar that we have to all meet to stand out. And now we need to start thinking about igniting what we create. So creating it is one component. Derek Halperin, does anybody know Derek Halperin from Social Triggers? One person? Oh man, I wish you guys all have to take my class. Derek Halperin has some great stuff, and he says 20% of your time should be spent on content creation, 80% should be spent on amplifying and sharing. Which is exciting because people who work in social, that's what we know how to do, which means job security, which is really cool. So, as I mentioned, this is just the starting line is the great content. It is no longer the finish line. And sometimes, I like to think, whew, I completed something. I got a blog post done. I created a video. But again, that's just the starting point. And what I'm finding from a business standpoint that's exciting for people like us is that when a client or somebody creates content, now they're needing help amplifying that content. And now we have an opportunity to say, if we learn this well, we can help you get noticed and we can help you stand out. So just a couple of quick stats. 83% of brand marketers say social sharing is the #1 benefit of digital marketing. Social sharing. Because who do we trust? Do we trust businesses and organizations? No, we trust our friends. Exactly right. So we trust our friends. 85% of you guys and me say that when other people share content, it helps us better understand stuff. So instead of reading it from a book, believe it or not, or a website, or watching a video, we'll ask a friend, hey, have you ever done this before? Hey, I'm building a tree house for my kids. What should I do? Or, hey, I'm thinking of training for a Spartan race. What do I do? Or I'm thinking of whatever. We will oftentimes reach out to our friends, and it's interesting how active our friends get. I rarely put out requests for answers to questions on my Facebook feed. I use Facebook for different reasons. And I did, and it was amazing the other day. Usually I don't get any comments on my stuff. I know, it's okay. But this one time I asked questions, I'd asked for feedback, it was like 50 people, bam. People like Chris Brogan, Mark Schaefer, other folks like that responded, as well as local people. And it was just unbelievable that people like to share, and that's going into networks and getting feedback from one another is extremely valuable. And then 70% of people say, and this is where businesses really ears perk up, are likely to make a purchase based off of a friend's share. And we have to remember that liking something is not the same as a share. A like is a very, very, very minor, hey, I kind of like this thing. A share is saying, this is who I am and this is what I'm about. I love this nonprofit. I love this book. I love this author. I love this product so much, I am going to talk about it. And it identifies with who I am. And so this is where the psychological variables get really, really interesting. But this is where marketers perk up because they know if they can get a recommendation from someone, somebody recommends their product, their service, whatever, their organization, they're going to see much more traffic. And if the right people share, you're going to have an even bigger impact. Now, is this shocking news to anyone? No, it isn't, right? Because this is the way it's always been. But the challenge, again, is thinking about why people use social and why we use social and how much noise is out there for attention for people and how we can stand out. So the big thing to think about is that the power for businesses and brands is not through content, it's through the content transmission. So getting people to move your content. BuzzSumo just did a fascinating article, if you look it up, or I can try to find the link and share it with you, on this platform that they developed to understand how content moves in gray social and dark social. Unbelievably interesting. Huge amounts of money put into the research. And one of the questions is, it's cool, but why are they doing that? Because they know that the transmission of content, based on all of the research they've done, they analyzed over 1 million websites and blogs and social media channels, comes through people sharing and transmitting. Not through me creating something and saying how cool my business or organization is. It comes through people who care about my business, my organization, and me as a person, sharing that with their audiences, the whole amplification idea. So you have to ask yourself, and this is an important thing, because what do businesses want to do? I want you to sell something. I'm going to reach out to, you don't have a name tag on. Corey. I'm going to reach out to Corey here. Corey doesn't know me very well, but you're a fitness guy, right? Okay, he's a fitness guy. I do Spartan races, I do CrossFit, so I got a product. I don't know Corey very well, but I found him, he's in Madison. I'm going to go on social and say, hey, Corey, can you promote this for me? And what are you going to say, Corey? Maybe. See, if I'm on the East Coast or West Coast with people, they say, no way, but Midwesterners, we're just so nice to each other. It's like, maybe, yeah. No, really, what would you say?
Of course.
No, you wouldn't. What about you? I'll pick on you.
Absolutely not. We'll keep it for consideration.
There you go. What about you? No. But why no? You have your own stuff to share. What about you? You work with him, so you have to listen to him. What about you, Kathy? You agree with me? That's smart. Now the reason is because when you promote something that you don't know, what are you doing? You're putting your reputation on the line. Now I'm lucky enough to be friends with folks like, everybody know Chris Brogan? Okay, Chris is a friend of mine, and he literally gets multiple requests every single day from people saying, I know you don't know me, but could you promote this? Could you tweet this out? And why is that? Because they want to borrow his network. But for Chris, what does that mean? He's putting his reputation on the line. So you have to say, why do you share? Not like stuff. Again, liking is just quick meeting interaction. Sharing something is like saying, hey, I'm going to take you out to La Toile for dinner. It's a lot of money, right? So I'm going to really need to know there's a connection with you. So why do people share? And here's a couple of quick reasons. Number one, we share to declare who we are. What we share, again, this is so interesting when you look at psychological and psychographic profiles of people. Just look at somebody's timeline and you'll see who they're about and what they're interested in. It is fascinating. Why is Facebook worth $220 billion? Anybody know? 220 billion was the latest estimate. Anybody pay money as a user to be on Facebook in here? Anybody pay to be a user as a business on Facebook? If you advertise, right? Why? Why did they do that? Why are they worth so much money? Data, exactly right. They have these immensely powerful data markers on every one of us, microseconds of data that can profile us to where after we've liked something up to 300 times, as we go through, and has everybody heard of Facebook? Right, of course you have. Now, most of us in here have liked things more than 300 times. Well, after 300 times of liking something, Facebook has a better psychological profile of you than if you went to a counselor on a regular basis. After 70 likes, they know you better than your spouse, which isn't surprising for some people, but if you stop and think about it, they're collecting data. So what we share, regardless of network, says a lot about who we are. Next, we want to appear smart. We want to be useful. Hey, look at this cool thing I found. I want to share it. I want to help my friends out, but also, as I share things and people say thanks, what does that do? Makes me feel good, right? It actually sets off dopamine in your brain, which is the feel-good hormone. So you want to share because you want to appear useful and helpful to your friends. A lot of us, and this is a very Midwest trait, why I love being from the Midwest, it's to be generous and kind. So I want to promote a cause, an organization, something that I care about. Another is to grow and nourish relationships. So I want to foster further relationships. I was telling Spencer right before we talked, I followed Chris Brogan for a long time. I'm a big fanboy, so he kind of laughs at me. He's like, do I need to get a restraining order when we see each other in person? I'm like, no, don't take it that far. But I've been a big fan of his and learned a ton from his for years. And the way we connected was about a year ago, and it was through Spartan races and physical fitness. Because he's a dad, I'm a dad. He runs a business, I run a business. And we started saying, well, how do you manage your mental health, your physical health, all of these things while, balancing all of the stuff in your life? And said, oh, Spartan races are really cool. So we started sharing content back and forth, and it helped us grow as people, and we started to nourish a relationship. So providing content and things that help us grow and continue to build current friendships and relationships. And we saw this happen in a negative way, and I'm sure you will see it in a negative way with the upcoming presidential elections. People will see stuff that they don't agree with, somebody's political views, and it used to be, well, I liked Lauren, but I can't believe she likes that person. And so you start to decrease and diminish the value of those relationships. And then last is to show love and support. Show that you just care about somebody, something. People like Mark Schaefer and Chris Brogan, Jay Bear, those folks will get people sharing their content without even reading it. Why? Because people love them. They feel connected to them. It's like the Oprah effect. Does everybody remember Oprah? Now, I admit I loved Oprah. Love Oprah. But one of the things is Oprah doesn't know who I am from a hole in the wall. But I feel like I'm connected with her. I really, it's like Taylor Swift is another great example of this. And why do people feel that way? Why do they share her stuff? Why do they connect? Because they feel a sense of love and support. So the dilemma that you and I have is this. You guys, including me when we're on these networks, share for intrinsic reasons, for emotional reasons. But when we put on our business hats, what do we want people to do? We want them to share for economic reasons. Big disconnect. This is profound stuff, by the way, that's why I'm pausing. This is extremely important. If you want to be good at social and digital, creating content and sharing content, ask yourself this question every single time. If you would fit into the network of people that are in the audience, say, would I share this? Or if you're not in that network, put yourself in the ideal persona of that network and say, would I share this? And be brutally honest. Because if the answer is no, you're probably pushing for economic reasons only, and you're not pushing for those emotional reasons, again, to get people to share and connect. So, important stuff. So what do we do? This is where we can start with some questions. Now, I'm going to buzz through these in the interest of time. You guys will have the slides. But let's just start. These are some of the basic questions that I start every client with when we're working on Ignition, that we start with the clients with Mark. And by the way, we're working with some really, really, really cool clients. So this is the same process that we use, and it goes in much more depth in the book. But first of all, check, is your own content igniting? One of the ways to check is what types of sharing, liking, retweeting, whatever platforms your audience is on, what's happening with your content once you create it. Is it like the example I started with? You spent $3 million on content and then there's crickets chirping. If that's the case, you have to think about why. Don't beat yourself up and say, oh, we're doing a terrible job. Say, well, what can we do better? As I teach my students in my class, and Lauren was one of my students, and Nate was one of my students. It was so cool to see you guys up here. But what does F stand for as a student? What does F stand for? Failure. That's a crock. F does not stand for failure. What does F stand for? It stands for feedback. All you're being told is what you're doing isn't working. And if you take that feedback, process that feedback, and do something with it, you can improve. So you don't freak out if you don't do something well. Oh my gosh, I looked at my content, I did an honest audit, and nothing's happening. I'm terrible at this. No, you just have been doing the wrong things. Figure out what to do. So you want to look also at your competition. What is it that they're doing? Is their content igniting? If it is, what are some of the things that they're doing, and analyze. This is critically important. The next question, if people are sharing, who is sharing? Quick question. For every time a person sees a tweet How many tweets does it take for them to see before they'll retweet something? So you're looking at your Twitter feed and you see X number of tweets come through. How many tweets does it take before you'll hit a retweet on average? Any guesses, Kristen?
I don't know.
20? You have a guess? 4? Anyone else? 100? 338. 338 on average before somebody will hit the retweet. On Facebook, how often will you get a share? What percentage of your audience will share what you create?
Less than 1%.
What's that?
Less than 1%.
Boom. 0.5% will share. These are people who are saying, I love you so much and I care about your content so much, I'm going to say I identify with it and I'm going to share it. Are you doing anything to take care of those people? Any type of connection with those people? The thing I hate about business in the United States, and this is business in general, is that we're always looking at new acquisition, new acquisition, new acquisition. I've been lucky enough to do have had some conversations with a gentleman named Joey Coleman. If you ever get a chance to look up Joey Coleman, he's amazing. He is the guy who consults with Zappos on customer service. So Zappos is pretty well known. And he has some phenomenal data, and he's an amazing storyteller about how you get people to stay connected. Because if somebody signs up with you, chances on whatever it is, chances are within 100 days, if you don't take care of them, they're gone. And they're gone for good. And we're always looking at new acquisitions. Hey, we've got this special offer for new customers. If you're brand new, I love this, I'm a US Cellular customer, and all the time they're offering these things for, and if you're with US Cellular, come talk to me because I have some things I need some help with. But if you're a new customer, you get this super special deal. And I'll say, well, wait a second, I've been with you almost 15 years, what do I get? Nothing. So 15 years I've been paying you, you have me in your pocket, and you're not going to take care of me. This happens in relationships a lot, by the way, is you start taking for granted. And so we end up looking for, I need more audience, I need more followers, I need more whatever. No, you don't. Look for the people who are sharing and interacting with you and take care of them. There's tons of ways to do that, but the best way to take care of them is by creating content that they'll continue to share and make sure you're thanking them in some way, shape, or form for sharing. Next, looking at where, why, and how do they share. So what platforms are they on? And making sure that what you're creating is easy, it makes it seamless for them to share what it is that they're doing. I just got to judge some categories. The Content Marketing Institute every year has the CMA award. Does anybody know the Content Marketing Institute, by the way? Great organization, check it out as far as learning some of the cores of content marketing. But the Content Marketing Institute has this CMA award, big event in Cleveland every year. I forget how many people attend, but it's the idea is that they look for different businesses that are doing unique things with content. And some of the things that people are doing to make content sharing easy are so simple and so easy to do. Some of them are super innovative that I got to see, but some of the basics we overlook, we take for granted. And by the way, I'm guilty of this sometimes too on my own stuff, so don't feel bad or beat yourself up if you're not doing things perfectly. Next, how do you tap into this audience and succeed? And then how do you enable sharing in every way? Making it easy for people to share your content. So the content code itself has these 6 core elements. And these 6 core elements I'm going to give you are the foundation. And again, this is a 30,000 foot overview. I wish I could do a full class on this. But 30,000 foot overview. Here are 6 things that you can think about when you think about, okay, I created content, or my client's been creating good content and it's not going anywhere. What do we do? First one is brand development. So when you think about brand development, you think about brands that you feel deeply connected to. Coca-Cola is a great example. People feel immensely attached to Coca-Cola when really it's nothing more than sugar water with some artificial coloring, right? You know, but you offer them a Pepsi, you say, you know, I'm sorry we don't have Coke, would you take a Pepsi? No. No. It's like saying, hey Don, do you ever watch a Bears game? No, Bears. Who are the Bears? I only watch professional football. Sorry, John. So thinking of what Mark talks about in the book is building a heroic brand that people feel so attached to that it's like an Oprah, or it's like a Zappos, or it's like for me, Spartan Race. I love Spartan Races. Anything they create, I will share. I feel like I'm part of the community. So step number one is that. Number two is, and this is where I think a lot of gold is. This is where I'm going deep this year, and I think from this point forward, this is where the goal of people who are going to stand out with digital marketing and content marketing and social media marketing are going to be, is finding people who are your core audience members, what we call your alpha audience, those 2% of people who share your content regularly, and taking care of them in a big way. Gary Vaynerchuk, anybody follow Gary Vaynerchuk? Anybody see the little Twitter video he just did on why Twitter video matters? Or he did it was actually on YouTube. Twitter video, what he does is he now sends shout-outs, video shout-outs to people who interact with him on Twitter. If you don't know about Gary Vaynerchuk, check him out. You absolutely must be following him. And it's at Gary VEE. Anyway, what Gary will do is he'll say, hey, 3 Rhino Media, thanks a lot for the retweet today, appreciate it, love you, brother, and send that. And he does that, these short little video shout-outs to people who regularly like and engage with him. You know what people like me do when he does that? Oh my gosh, he sent me a video. And I hate to admit it, but it's like fanboying. We all get excited by that. Little thing that builds deeper connection. So finding people, again, who are taking care of you and make sure that they know you're taking care of them. Seth Godin talks about this with tribes as well, is making people feel a part of your community. Next is distribution, advertising, promotion, SEO. None of this stuff goes away. This is just added to. So some people took the content code or the idea initially of content shock as saying SEO is dead, and this is, no. This is in addition to. This does not replace any of that. But are you strategically distributing? Quick example. So a person I know created a blog post. The blog post got 7,000 reads. Now for most of us, it's pretty cool, right? Person took that same piece of content and distributed it as a SlideShare. That SlideShare got 100,000 shares. Same content, exact same content, designed a little bit differently, but different audience. So thinking about how you can strategically distribute, share, and repurpose. Building authority, and this is something that takes time. Everybody wants, I've got a client out in California, and he always will say to me, and this drives me nuts, we've been working with him for a little bit, but he has not much content, and his whole thing is, I need to be on the front page of Google. Does anybody ever get that? Get me on the front page of Google. All you have to do, by the way, is use Photoshop, take a screenshot, say, here you are. No. Shh, don't tell anybody I said that. Quick, edit that out, by the way. But the idea is authority matters, but you have to earn authority to be able to do things like have people see you as a thought leader in your community. And one of the things that I would encourage you to do is don't think of big national, international communities. Think of local and niche communities. I always mess up on that word. But next is social proof and social signals. So looking at how is content shared, and are you getting enough engagement and shares to be visible? So quick example, let's say we're all going out to eat. We all go to somewhere in Door County, and there's 2 restaurants that are open. It's all that's open. One restaurant has a line out the door, tons of people are sitting down and eating, and the parking lot is full. Across the street is another restaurant, and nobody's in it, even though the lights are on. Which restaurant would you go to? The one with all the people. Why? Because it must be good, right? Anybody ever watch SpongeBob? This is like the Krusty Krab and the Chum Bucket, right? The idea being that these signals, we all use these signals as quick markers to make decisions when we see something. Hey, this hasn't been shared very much, therefore it's not very good. Or this person doesn't have a big community, so therefore not very good. That's why, like, when you go to something like Social Media Examiner, you'll see 370,000 people have signed up for our newsletter, you should too. That's social proof. That's saying, hey, it feeds into things like authority as well. So thinking of how is stuff transmitting through? Yes?
Just a quick story. A guy who used to work at Disneyland said all you had to do is get 4 people in the
Yep, exactly. Yep, and I'm forgetting the name. Maybe it was Abercrombie Fitch. They would pay models to stand out in front of their stores, like in New York City and other places, because you get good-looking, attractive people hanging out. What does everybody want to be? Good-looking and attractive, and they're going to go and hang out over there, right? So very, very true in terms of how that works. And last is shareability of content. If there's one thing you take away from today, if I could give you one quick tip that I would absolutely use beyond a shadow of a doubt, it would be this. Work on your headlines. If you have a good headline, there is a 400% chance of you getting more shares. Did you hear that? 400%. Which good headline writing is like doing what? Writing good tweets, right? So you have benefit of Twitter, etc. And so as we look at that, if you look at the first letters of each of those, what does it spell? That's right. Y'all are a bunch of badasses now, right? All right, so if you want to be a badass, this is what you have to do. Now, in the interest of time, I'm just going to buzz through a couple of quick items in terms of what you can do. And so let me just quick buzz through these. Content code has 22 tips. Here's 6 quick ones that you can also take to make yourself that digital marketing badass. That's right. It's the only time my kids are like, what did you just say? I'm like, it's business. So number 1, make sure you have share buttons. Content that has share buttons is 700% more likely to be shared. It's amazing how many of my clients do not have this. Simple, easy stuff, right? Duh. We know this because it's our arena and our world, but a lot of times people that we work with don't. Number 2 is crafting that headline. By the way, when it comes to crafting headline, list posts get up to 50% more shares on average than non-list posts. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't like list posts. Well, people share them because that's the way people work. Next is removing barriers. And this is a challenge. Again, I work with HubSpot, so I'm all about getting lead capturers, stuff like that. But do people really need to register for every piece of content you have? If you're making them register for everything, think of how many people you're losing at the gate who are saying, I'm not ready for this first date. I want a little bit more for free before I give you my contact information.
Do you consider a copyright symbol a barrier?
No, not at all. When you have to enter your information to get content.
But should we include copyright, obvious copyright in our materials?
That's fine to do, yeah. That's not a barrier. Next is creating joyful content. How many people think there's too much bad news in the world? And I always joke about this. Now, I'm a dog person, but why are cat and treadmill videos so popular? And we know we've all watched one. John Lucas, I'm looking at you, especially when the Bears are playing. Why is that? Because we need to laugh more. We need that stuff. So giving people a chance to smile, doing something silly, doing something personal is okay to do. Being visual, BuzzSumo did an analysis of over 100 million articles, and what they found was posts with images get twice as many shares as posts that don't. So again, some of this is bottom line, easy to do. And then last is repurposing your content. As I mentioned, that one blog post got 700 page views when it was repurposed as something for SlideShare, 100,000 views. So last but not least, anybody ever read this advertisement? Supposedly from Ernest Shackleton, men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of darkness, constant danger, safe return, doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. And they got a gazillion, the story goes that he ended up getting a ton of people showing up. Well, that's kind of what marketing is today. It's getting tougher and tougher and tougher. And yeah, it's not life or death, but it is getting tougher. But if you know how to chart where you're going, you can have success. And this still is going to be, in a lot of ways, uncharted territory. We don't know where all of this stuff is going, which I think, for me, is part of what makes it fun. But hopefully these tips and these ideas help you a little bit in terms of thinking about, okay, what is that next step? Once I create content, where is the next place that I need to go? And thinking of, how do I ignite my content? How do I engage those people in my community who are really, really, really important to me? What are the little things that I can do to stand out? That really is where the gold of 2015 and beyond is going to be in the arenas we work with digital and content marketing. So that's my spiel.
So stick around. Don's going to be here to answer some questions. Wanted to take a moment to thank the staff here. We had a lot more people show than we expected. We usually have a calculation that we expect a lot of you to hit your snooze button and not come. And it seems like Don was a big draw, so we have a record crowd today. And the staff here, the catering staff, did a tremendous job in keeping up with us. And so for the questions, if you could stand up, project your voice, Don will then repeat the question back so that the camera can catch it. And then you're going to announce the book winners, is that what you're saying? Oh, okay, so we're going to ask the questions from Facebook, and then that'll determine some of the book recipients.
So we'll do 5 questions from here.
So I'm going to give Shane the mic because he's talking to me and then you can't hear him.
Wow. Let's take a look here. So we got some really great questions here. So thank you first and foremost to everybody that posted their questions on Facebook. And why don't we start with Kimberly Skinner Hazen?
Where's Kimberly?
Kimberly, all right. Can you talk about links within content? Can we use them to get the best ignition? Or how can we use them to get the best ignition? Is there such a thing as a bad link?
Ooh, interesting question. If it links to the Chicago Bears, it is a bad link. I just love John, that's why I got it. Where did that come from, right? The answer is there really isn't a bad link. Basically, the idea that, I'm not sure, is the gist of your question like linking to certain types of content or certain websites or too many links? Both.
Like whatever content we use is based on something. So if we draw in, like if I use an authority site, say I'm quoting the FTC.
Yep.
Is it possible to put that in my content, right?
Absolutely.
But when, I'm quoting, the, whatever, cat society, I mean, are there bad links,
It depends. As far as content ignition, not really. There isn't anything. It depends on partially your audience. So like when I'm writing my academic stuff, creating stuff for academics, people want lots of, okay, can I check your sources and make sure your sources are credible? If every other word is a link, obviously, that's when you can get into trouble. One of the things I like to do in addition to links is have, I'm forgetting the name of the app, but you can take a quote from a story, then make it a tweetable so that people can click to tweet and use that as a way to say, okay, I want to see if there's not just engagement with a link, but if people are actually sharing or engaging with content from a link. But as far as like overall numbers of links, there really isn't a magic number. There isn't specific research to this point that says, no, don't do this. One of the things that obviously don't link to things that are irrelevant. You still get people saying and trying to pull, doing the newsjacking, where they hear something's going on. Taylor Swift has a new record out, so we're going to quick write something and link to Taylor Swift to try to increase our page authority and try to look like we know what's going. Don't do that kind of thing. But for the most part, no.
And do you use is it Alexia or Alexa? How do you judge authority sites?
Yes.
What do you look at when you're...
That's one of them. I also use Moz, moz.com. That's another good one to use. Looking at both page authority and domain authority. Those are two variables that we look at. So page authority talks about the specific individual page. Domain authority says, well, for this whole website, how much value does this, how much authority does this entire website as a whole have? So I'll look at those. And partially I do that not just to share their stuff, but to look for making sure I'm finding good, credible content. Because that is one of the big challenges is, it's like 95% of statistics are made up. And that's 63% true according to statistics. People are pulling stuff out of thin air and you're like, what? And that's why like the PolitiFact is so powerful when it comes to looking at who's telling the truth, because it's so hard to pay attention to, and you get that a lot in business where people will pull out these stats and things from wherever and you're like, how do I know that that's actually valid? How do I know that that's actually true? And that's where linking to sources is really helpful and really valuable. Does that answer the question? Yes. Okay. Back to you.
Hey. All right, next up we have Mike Pillars. Mike around? There we go. How do you go about matching the right content to the right stage of the buyer's journey?
That is also that's a good deep question. This is where for me, what we'll often do is we'll get in touch with the alpha audience to go through and develop some deep psychographics on their buying process. So, people basically go, you'll hear it from stranger and lack of awareness to, blah, 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 all the way to making a final purchase. So thinking about the questions that they have at particular points in the journey, starting there, and then what we'll do is we'll go and you can do a Google search for the questions that they're asking and see how often those questions are coming up. Just looking at, if something is showing up 10 times, not a super valuable question at that particular point within the buyer's journey. If it shows up 100,000 times, hey, this is something that a lot of people have questions on. One of the biggest misuses of digital and social, when we talked about why Facebook is worth so much, is data, and we do a lot of social listening. So identifying people who are at different stages of our buying journeys and making sure that we're constantly monitoring and listening to the questions that they have and we're answering those. So I use HubSpot for part of that. There are free tools that you can use. I can't quote any off the top of my head. But do you use a particular tool, or you guys? Yep. And that's really the best technique that we use as well. The best one that I can recommend.
Great. Now this is a great one from Emily Kelly. Emily, how often do you suggest doing a content audit?
So as far as auditing your own content, we try to do a light one monthly, and then one quarterly, a little more in-depth quarterly. A lot of it depends on time, but trying to look at the base of what's resonating and are there certain variables we can pay attention to that are resonating. Ideally you're doing it weekly, but who has time to do that? It's you've got so many moving parts going on that we try to do it again, monthly on a super basic level. What moved? Why did it move? Who was interacting? Who was engaging? Get some basic measures. Then quarterly, let's do a deep dive, see what we found from the last 3 months, have somebody on the team go in, look at these things in more detail, and see, are there patterns to what created something that was highly shareable? Was it timely? Was it a certain thing with a headline? Was it list post? Did list posts do really well? And then let's audit what we've got. A lot of times what we'll do when we're starting with clients, and this is something you guys can easily do, is to go through their current content, see what they've created, see what you think might resonate with their audience. Sometimes you'll see certain things that have resonated and see articles that, this is a similar type of article, why didn't it resonate? And sometimes just repurposing that with a new title and resharing it in a different way and restructuring the content in some ways is a great way to go through once you audit as well, to try to reshare and see if you can get more traction with it. But we try to do it at least. It's so important to do. It's like, you think of Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers has their weekly weigh-ins if you go to a Weight Watchers. Well, why do they have that? Because it's an important measure to make sure you stay on track. And if you don't measure in some way, it's going to fall off your radar and you're just going to get back in a create content, and not think about the content ignition part of it.
I don't know about this, but if you had an old blog post that did perform well in the past and you want to repurpose it, rather than changing the title, would you worry about that affecting the ratings?
If it's the exact same content in the blog post, yeah. So I might go back and I might say, this was a popular post last year. We're revisiting it this year because to see what's changed. Here are the things that we've seen that are the same. Here's the things that we've seen that have changed. So link back to that article, but new blog posts say updated 5 content ignition strategies for 2016. What's new in the content ignition world or something like that. Does that make sense?
All right, next question from Stephanie Luer. There we go. How do you convert people in your organization who don't understand the importance of their knowledge for creating content?
Fire them. Bring in the emperor. It depends on the person. Everybody is motivated by different things. And one of my favorite business quotes of all time, and I've got this one posted, I use it in every single class I teach, most workshops I do, is, if you wish to persuade me, you must think my thoughts, speak my words, and feel my feelings. So I'm going to say that again. Really think about it. If you wish to persuade me, you must think my thoughts, speak my words, and feel my feelings. Pretty sage advice, right? I mean, really stop and think about it. In order to get somebody to move, to think about something, to dig deep, you have to understand where they're coming from. Anybody know who said that? I know I just did, but who said it before me? People who've had my class should remember. You don't remember? Lauren? Nate? Anyone? Any guesses? No guesses? Viktor Frankl? That's a great guess. I love Viktor. Cicero. Exactly. Dexter remembered for me. My guy Dexter remembered. Yep, Cicero said it. And not this Cicero. But Cicero over 2,500 years ago. This stuff isn't new. So if I'm thinking of I need to motivate somebody, are they motivated by just pure sales? So can I find some data that quickly, succinctly shows the value of content in terms of driving sales? Is it somebody who's looking for leads? Is it somebody who's, can I find some case studies that from their perspective would make sense to them? That's, wow. So one of my favorite guys on the planet, I love this guy, is Marcus Sheridan, the sales line. If you don't know Marcus, follow him as well. Phenomenal human being, great content marketer, and he's got a great story of how content marketing helped his business go from being bankrupt, literally on the verge of bankruptcy, huge debt, all kinds of crazy stuff going on, to the most popular, he sells swimming pools, most popular swimming pool website in the world, out of this little town in rural Virginia by using content. And yeah, that's kind of neat. I got a lot of traffic. But he is now goes around the world speaking about content marketing, and he can show clear metrics. This is why we use HubSpot. He got us to use HubSpot. Clear metrics, dollar value, that shows that when they started adopting content marketing, their sales increased. It was ridiculous. I don't even know the numbers now, but one blog post that they wrote, they could track. One blog post has resulted in about $4.5 million of clear sales. And again, we use HubSpot. He used HubSpot in that case to track that. But if I can say, hey, here's one blog post. This blog post answered a question in the buyer's journey, because the number one question about swimming pools when you're thinking swimming pool is what? What's the number one question? Cost. How much does it cost? And he answered that question. The answer, of course, is it depends. And that led to people doing Google searches, finding their site, and buying over $4.5 million of pools. And by the way, that blog post continues to sell to this day because people still have that question. So they update it every year. So answering, talking about can you repurpose stuff as well. So it depends on that person, what would motivate them, and then just find a case study or two and bring it to them. But if somebody, it's like if you lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. So the more you can understand what might motivate them, the more you can just share little things and say, hey, do you think it would be helpful if we cut our marketing budget? Like Marcus was spending $250,000 a year on Google ads, and it was resulting in about $1 million in sales. Now he spends about $20,000 a year, and he's making about a lot more, well into the 8 figures in sales. But do you think that would help our company? Well, yeah. And so then I know that person's motivated by money, the sales, which is an important part of what you do. And then I bring in little case studies like that to help them out. Does that make sense?
All right, this one is from Vicki Hellenbrand, and this is our last one for the books. Where's Vicki? Is she still? Great. So this is actually going to kind of bring us full circle here and go back to the $3 million question. Any suggestions on how a small real estate company can compete in this world without a $3 million budget?
Great question. And we got to remember $3 million. Part of the reason I use that is because when I first looked at that, I'm like, you got to be kidding. How can you fail with $3 million? But $3 million is relative. To that company, $3 million was like $30,000 to me, or maybe $3,000 to some of you. Now, the key is local. The more niche and the more local you can get, the better. So, as a quick example, there was a company that actually does real estate in a different state that started looking at helping doctors and dentists who are moving to different locations to know how to find the right home. And so what they started doing was they started creating content that was specifically designed to the things that they would be most concerned about. Sometimes they were buying vacation homes in a lot of cases that they would be most concerned about. The amenities that they would be interested. Could they still do this? Could they still do that? Now, I'm not a doctor, never played one on TV, nor am I a dentist. Can't stand them. So I don't know exactly what they were looking for, but what they started doing was they started creating these pieces of content, and Likeable social media does this really well based out of New York City, creating these sub-segments of content that really hyper-targeted different markets. So maybe there's some content that you create that's geared towards, again, I'm totally making this up, doctors, or families who are moving to a new area that have kids in a certain age group, the things that they would be looking for. They started creating content and also doing some ads as well, like Facebook ads or different types of ads that targeted those niche markets and making it specific to a location like Madison, Wisconsin, or South Central Wisconsin, whatever it was. In the case of budget, the budget was spent on like Facebook, would be spent on something like a targeted Facebook ads, which Andrew Foxwell, who's not here today, but he's a great person to talk to about that. Looking at how do you use those to find those right folks, but the more specific you can speak to somebody's interest area and get specific, the more likely they're going to connect with you. Yes, it's going to be fewer people, but when you look along the buyer's journey, they're going to be farther along. Because if I read something about real estate for, again, doctors who are new doctors who are starting their residency, totally making this up again, but new doctors moving to San Francisco. And instead of doing that, I have tips for new doctors to buy real estate. Well, is real estate in Madison different than real estate in San Francisco? Are the concerns I have in San Francisco different than Madison? Absolutely. So the more specific it can get, it narrows your audience down, but it also makes you more of an expert. And so your content has more authority because, hey, if there's a specialist in Madison, Wisconsin, here's the person to go to for this niche market. And you can have multiple niches. It doesn't have to be just doctors or whatever it is. You can pick multiple. But the key is the more you can speak to them and understand who they are, the more they're going to feel connected with your content, and the more the value the ads are going to have when they're served, etc. Does that make sense? And again, with some of my clients, sometimes the Facebook ad budget is literally $50 to $100 a month. And that's, other than hiring us, but that's when they're doing it, that's it. And you can do a lot of that on your own. As valuable as I like to think I am, you can do a lot of this on your own.
All right, perfect. Do you want to do a couple more questions, or well, if you'd like to stay, we'll take a couple more questions for Don if anybody has a regular question they'd like to ask. Yes,